Dawn has not broken yet when a Christian priest opens the gates of Jerusalem to Saladin's army, terrified for the city he calls home. He has made peace with his own death. 12 years on these walls taught him what conquerors leave behind. But no one inside the city knows that the Sultan outside has already given his order. Not a house touched, not a civilian harmed. The priest does not believe it. Every time before, this city changed hands and blood. Not today. Most people think Jerusalem fell in 1187 because Saladin was more powerful than those who came before him. He wasn't. What happened was something far harder to explain. A man who had every reason to take revenge chose not to. And no one inside those walls saw it coming. Not yet. Before we go further, if this kind of history is what you come here for, subscribe and hit the like button. Drop a comment. Which city or moment in medieval history should we reconstruct next? We read everyone. It is the 4th of July, 1187. You are standing on the horns of Hattin, a volcanic ridge above the Sea of Galilee. The Crusader army, 15,000 soldiers, the largest force the kingdom has ever assembled, has been marching for 2 days without water. Saladin's forces have been burning the dry grass around them, filling the air with smoke that gets into the lungs and stays there. The men around you are dizzy, their mouths are cracked, their horses have stopped sweating, which means the horses are dying. The nearest water is the lake below, glittering in the July heat like a taunt. Between the Crusaders and that lake stands the entire Ayyubid army. King Guy of Lusignan pitches his red tent on the ridge and orders camp for the night. His officers beg him to push through to the water. He does not listen. By morning, his army is too weak to fight and too exhausted to run. Saladin closes the circle before sunrise. The Crusaders who are not struck down are taken captive. The king himself is captured. The true cross, the object Crusaders believed made them invincible in battle, is taken from its bearer and carried into the Ayyubid camp. It was never seen again. The kingdom of Jerusalem has just lost its entire army in a single morning, and the city has almost no one left to defend it. This is what Saladin rides toward, and he has been riding toward it for 20 years. He was not born to power. He was born into Krit, the son of a Kurdish officer, in a world where second sons inherited nothing and third sons did not even have names worth remembering. He spent his early years as an administrator, reading, corresponding with scholars, learning how cities worked from the inside, physically unimpressive, pathologically polite. When he was given command of Egypt at 31, those above him assumed he would be manageable. He spent the next 2 decades quietly building something that had never existed in the fractured Muslim world of that century. A unified force stretching from Egypt through Syria into Mesopotamia. He built it not through terror, but through a single repeated act, keeping his word. Every city he took by negotiation, he kept. Every promise he made, he honored. By the time he arrived outside Jerusalem, his reputation had traveled further than his army. That reputation is why the priest at the gate did not know what to believe. It was something new. Balian of Ibelin is a French knight who escaped the disaster at Hattin. He rides to Saladin's camp and asks for something extraordinary, safe passage into Jerusalem, not to fight, but to collect his wife and children and bring them to safety. Saladin grants it on 2 conditions. 1 night only, and never raise a sword against the Sultan. Balian swears the oath and enters the city. Inside, the patriarch and the queen and the people of Jerusalem fall on their knees before him and beg him to stay. They have no one else. Balian sends a letter to Saladin explaining what has happened. The man he has sworn never to oppose reads it and releases him from the oath. He also sends an armed escort to bring Balian's family safely to Tyre. The man who will defend Jerusalem against Saladin does so with Saladin's personal permission. No one inside the walls quite knows what to make of this. Neither do you. Saladin's army in 1187 is not a single force marching under one banner. It is a coalition. Kurds, Arabs, Turks, Persians, soldiers from Egypt and Syria and Mesopotamia, each contingent with its own commander and its own expectations about what happens when a city falls. Keeping that army from looting Jerusalem after a siege is not simply a matter of issuing an order. It requires every commander in the chain to enforce it, to stand in front of men who have been fighting for weeks and tell them to walk past wealth they could take. Saladin does not just give the order, he rides through the city himself to make sure it is followed. His chroniclers record him moving through the streets of Jerusalem on the 2nd of October, personally overseeing the transfer of population, personally ensuring that no one violates the terms. This is not mercy from a distance, it is work. Balian has no knights. He knights every able-bodied man in the city, merchants, craftsmen, stable hands, anyone who can hold a weapon. He melts the silver from the churches to pay them. When Saladin's army arrives on the 20th of September, the siege begins. For 12 days, the defenders hold. Saladin's engineers undermine the northern wall. His archers fire without pause. His siege engines throw stone after stone into the defenses. The wall begins to crack. On the 28th of September, a section collapses. Saladin's troops pour toward the breach. The defenders push them back. But everyone inside the walls knows the same thing. The breach can be held for hours, not days. Balian walks out of the gates alone and goes to find Saladin. Their meeting is conducted in Arabic without translators. Balian speaks it well enough. He tells Saladin what will happen if the city falls by storm. The defenders will execute every Muslim prisoner held in the city. They will destroy the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, stone by stone. Then they will fight until no one is left standing. He is not threatening from strength. He is describing what people do when they have nothing left to lose. The two men sit in silence for a moment. A Christian knight and a Muslim sultan in a tent outside the walls of a city both consider sacred, working out between them what the next hour will cost. Saladin has vowed to take Jerusalem the way it was taken in 1099. He has said it publicly. His army expects it. And yet, Saladin listens. Then he offers terms. Every Christian may leave safely. Men pay 10 gold dinars, women 5, children 1. Those who cannot pay have 40 days to find the money. 7,000 of the poorest will be freed in exchange for 30,000 gold dinars from the city treasury. Money deposited there years earlier by the King of England as penance for something else entirely, never collected, sitting in a vault beneath the city, waiting for exactly this moment. Saladin's brother Al-Adil takes his allocation and immediately frees 1,000 prisoners at his own expense. Balian frees 500 more. The Patriarch of Jerusalem leaves the city carrying so much gold and silver that contemporary witnesses write about it with open contempt. Saladin lets him go. On the 2nd of October, 1187, Balian surrenders the keys of Jerusalem. Saladin enters. His soldiers do not loot, they do not burn, they do not touch a single civilian. 15,000 people walk out of the gates alive, escorted by Saladin's troops to ensure they are not harmed on the road. Among them are women who carried their husband's armor out of the city rather than leave it behind, priests who walked with relics wrapped in cloth against their chests, children who had never seen anything outside the walls, old men who had been in Jerusalem since before the siege began, since before the kingdom trembled, since before anyone knew what was coming. They walk north toward Tyre, the one coastal city still in Christian hands. Balian of Ibelin walks with them. His hair has gone white at the temples. He will spend the rest of his life trying to negotiate a future for people who have lost everything except their lives. When the column passes through the gates, Saladin is seen weeping. No one records why. The Muslim chronicler Imad ad-Din, who was present, writes that the scene was unlike anything he had witnessed in a lifetime of war. Compare this to what happened the last time. In 1099, the First Crusade took Jerusalem by storm. 5 weeks of siege, then 3 days inside the walls, doing what conquering armies did in that century and every century before it. Muslim and Jewish inhabitants were gathered in buildings, and the buildings were set on fire. A Crusader chronicler, writing with evident satisfaction, described the blood rising to the knees of the horses. The population of Jerusalem fell by tens of thousands in 72 hours. The Crusaders then walked to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, still covered in what they had done, and gave thanks. This is what Saladin knew. This is what every person inside those walls knew. This is why the priest had already made peace with his own death. He was not being pessimistic. He was reading the evidence correctly. He was wrong. And the reason he was wrong had been building for 20 years before he ever opened that gate. The inhabitants of Jerusalem who walked out of those gates alive went on to populate other cities, to tell their children what had happened, to carry the name of the man who let them leave into every court in Europe. In the century that followed, when European rulers debated whether to negotiate with Saladin's successors, they negotiated. They had heard the stories. A city taken by storm has to be held by force. A city that surrenders remembers who was merciful. One lasts a season, the other lasts a century. Jerusalem is still there. The dome of the rock that Balian threatened to destroy is still there. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre that Saladin left standing is still there. And somewhere in the foundations of the old city, in the stones that have stood through every army that has ever come through those gates, is the record of a morning in 1187 when a priest opened a door expecting to die and walked out alive instead. The raid on Lindisfarne was the beginning of something. The gates of Jerusalem in 1187 were something rarer, an ending that looked like one, but was not. The city is still there. So is the question it left behind. If this story reached you, subscribe and tell us in the comments which city or moment we should walk through next. There are more stories buried here than any one video can hold.